Hello, so I just finished watching Your Lie in April with Jay. We watched it on his Twitch. He's watched it before. This was my first time. He told me I was in for a sweet, lovely romance. The jerk! So my heart's broken, and now I'm going to talk to you about it. This is going to be a spoiler-filled review. It should already be in the title, but here's your second warning. I'm going to start off by saying, what a stunningly produced anime. Not only is visually this one of the most beautiful animes I've seen, but musically this entire story is wrapped around music and musical performances and different interpretations of the same piece, and it is stunning. The animation around them actually playing the instruments, the production of the performances, every single detail is unbelievably done. This is one of the best experiences of watching anime, even though it's a slow story, even though it's far more focused on the emotions and the themes and unpacking of old wounds, tearing off old scabs so that healing can come from multiple perspectives. Even though this is a story that is very, very introspective, outwardly, it's gorgeous. But we have these three best friends who have been best friends their entire lives and are so closely knit that it seems like there's really no room for another person to enter into this friend group. Enter Kaori, who has a crush on Watari and wants to go on a date with him, so Kousei and Tsubaki join and they all watch her perform. Kousei, this is a spoiler review, I assume you know, has not played music for about 2 years since his mom died because there's a lot of trauma wrapped up in that, and Kaori pushes him back into that musical world because she's a wild card and she needs a new accompanist. She needs someone to play piano with her for her next performance. She throws her heart and soul into her performances. She gives everything. She speaks through the music. She wants to touch people through her performance, through what she puts into the score. And that passion moves out into every expression of her life, into her love of food, into her love of people, into her excitement and frustrations. Everything is full tilt. And that includes her trying to convince Kousei to play with her. So we have sheet music just bombarding the poor lad everywhere he goes. She pushes him, she manipulates him, she begs for him to play with her. And their first performance, which is, by the way, their only duet in the entire show, that first duet that they do together that he bombs, that's their only duet. I didn't realize it until it was all done, and I'm looking back and I'm like, oh no. They never got their second. Anyway, that first duet where he still has all this trauma wrapped up around him. He has been trained to be the human metronome, the robot, the puppet of his mother, the one who plays with absolute precision, perfect precision, so that he can win every competition because he plays the score exactly as it was intended to be played, with no nuance, or I'm sorry, with no deviation, with no personalization. He is the human metronome. And playing with someone like Kousei is extremely difficult from his position, and the visuals around that trauma and that experience that he's having while playing alongside of her, the visual of his anxiety fogging his mind and muting everything around him, that it feels like he's underwater. He can't hear the keys anymore. He can't hear the music anymore. And he thinks, there's no one here, just darkness. I'm going to be all alone. And he ends up giving up because he realizes that he's dragging her down, that she's going to fail this competition, and it's going to be because of him. And failure was never an option for him as a child, at least not near the end. Any sort of misstep whatsoever had very extreme consequences for him with his mom. And so this failure that he was having right there on stage, and failure that directly affected someone else, was detrimental to him. So to have Kaori look back at him, smile. She quit too. She stopped too. She could have kept going. She could have finished the song and still got some points at least, but instead she disqualified herself by quitting as well and looking back at him and smiling and saying, again. She shows him, she's the perfect contrast to his mom, this very harsh, we'll circle around to the nuances around his mom, this very harsh, critical, perfectionist mother that caused him to be so tightly wound and traumatized. That was the only thing he knew, and now what he's experiencing is someone who would rather drop out of the competition and then start over with no points just so that they could play together. And then on top of that, that afterwards, when he's in the hospital, when he's visiting her in the hospital, because she collapses at the end of it, when he's visiting her at the hospital, he's reflecting on the fact that she isn't badgering him about it. She isn't making him feel guilty. She's not even bringing it up. She doesn't seem to care. And on their introduction, in her first performance, she lets them know, I don't care about placing. I just want to leave a mark on people. I just want to leave an impact. So right from the start, we have this contrast between his mom and the only thing that he's ever known, the only thing that he played for in the end, versus Kaori, who is trying to teach him freedom through the music, that who puts her heart and soul into the music, doesn't care about playing the score exactly right. She cares about putting everything into the score and touching people. And when Kousei is the reason she can't reach people perfectly, she stops and still wants him there with her and doesn't begrudge him for his failures. Instead, she just wants to push him forward alongside with her. So right from the start, we have this huge contrast, this worldview shifting, or at least music worldview shifting contrast between these two people that begin his journey into healing. But also we have the parallel of the two women. They both have this passion and love for music. They both have this fierceness about them, and they're both, she is very, very sick, which brings up a lot more trauma for him as well. This series is such a tangled story that goes back and forth between the present and the past, that slowly unveils more about what's going on with Kaori, about the layers with his mom, about the layers of Kousei's own trauma, and a slow progression of each of these individual characters' growth. It does this thing with this back and forth where a lot of times episodes will start with a flashback and it'll show these characters as kids in a certain position and then take you through the episode, and the episode will end with them in present time paralleling that opening scene and showing us directly how much these characters are changing right before our eyes. Like in episode 5, it shows them as kids when Kousei didn't want to jump into the water because he was afraid that, his mom would hit him if he got his hands wet. So they forced him into the water. They dragged him in. They had to make him have this experience. But once he was in the water, he loved it and he wanted to go again and again and again. Present day, she jumps into the water and he hesitates. He almost doesn't go with her, but then he himself elects to jump in, and he loves it. With his mom, he was so reserved for fear of punishment for the slightest thing out of line. With Kaori, he is learning that freedom, and he's pushing past those boundaries that he's stayed within for so long, and he's actually allowing himself to have experiences, to have new challenges. At one point, Kaori asks him, or apologizes to him, I know that this must be hard for you. I know this must be traumatizing to enter back into music after everything you've been through. And he tells her, yeah, new challenges are really difficult. New experiences like this, creating something new, is really hard. But it's worth it. This is a good thing. I'm paraphrasing. But the point is that Kaori is, to him, a representation of freedom. Kaori's trying to show him she's not freedom, music is freedom. They're musicians. They find their life and their freedom through this expression. And we see through instances like this how he is finding that freedom and that expression, even in small things like just jumping into the water. Episode 6 does the same thing. I'll only give one more example of this. It starts with Tsubaki carrying Kousei home because he's injured, but she's way more injured. Her ankle is busted. And he's crying, and she starts crying, and all she's thinking is, it's really unfortunate that I'm having to carry you, even though I'm proper injured as well, but also at least your hands aren't hurt. I don't want the wrath of your mom on you if your hands were to be hurt. Present day, Tsubaki is playing baseball and she's reflecting on the fact that she kind of feels pushed out of her own friend group, of her own life, the world that she's known for so long. She's feeling like she doesn't fit into it anymore. With Kousei entering into Kaori, with Kaori entering into Kousei's, like, I'm really trying with these names. Whole time I watched with Jay, they were glasses, sick girl, baseball, and soccer. I had to learn their names for this. With Kaori entering into Kousei's life, all of a sudden Tsubaki isn't the one standing next to him all the time. All their life, she has been the one that's comforted him through the really hard times. She's the one that's laughed with him. She's the one that sat with him in the rain and talked through everything with him. She's always been his person, and now she's not. And she's spiraling. And with thinking about all this, she ends up losing focus. She loses the game for everyone. She's so disappointed, and as she's walking home, Kousei meets her with a bag of ice. He taps her leg. She loses it because her leg is proper injured. And she even asks him, "How did you know that I was hurt?" And his answer was, "How long have we been friends?" I love that. And then we end the episode with him carrying her home. Her ankle is hurt, he's got ice wrapped around it, and he's got her on his back this time, and he's carrying her. I think he said something along the lines of, "You've carried me for so much of our life, it's about time I start carrying you." I think it was something like that. It was beautiful. Their friendship, their loyalty to each other, even in this time of a lot of friction, especially from Tsubaki's perspective, even in this time of a lot of friction, they're still always by each other's side, constantly. I love it. Actually, let me just talk about the characters for a little bit. Tsubaki has always thought of him as her little brother. She's always taken for granted that he's going to be the one that's always going to be by her side. He'll never not be there, and she's very comfortable with their dynamic. And it's when she feels displaced that she realizes how valuable he really is to her, and she starts flailing. And the way she answers that is by just, her old crush shows up, he's around, she asks him out. She only talks about Kousei on all of their dates. But slowly she realizes that Kousei has changed. His footprints are bigger than they were as a kid. He stands up straighter now. He smiles more. He's different. In fact, everyone in her life seems to be different. She feels like she's the only one that isn't changing alongside of them, and she's being left behind. She wants things to go back to how they were, but she also wants everything to change between the two of them. And when he tells her that he's moving away and going to another school, that is what really breaks her, but also motivates her, makes her realize that she doesn't want him to not be a constant in her life, and she has to do something about it. We see in flashbacks them as kids, her telling him, "I'm gonna help you." When he says, "I'm a puppet, I'm my mom's puppet, I have no soul, I'm living in my mom's shadow," and she goes, "You do have a soul, but you've tucked it away somewhere. I'm gonna help you find it. I'm sticking with you." And as a 14-year-old, she's doing the same thing. She's like, "I'm by your side," and just the same, he's telling her that he's by her side. When her boyfriend kind of accepts, "She's not into me, I'm gonna give her an excuse, I'm gonna let her off easy, I'm gonna give her a reason to be done with me," basically. And then she's crying because she realizes, I hurt him. I was not in the right place to be dating him, and I caused him pain, and that hurts her that she hurt him. And so she's sitting there crying, and Kousei comes and sits next to her and plays the piano, and she lashes out against him, and she's like, "I don't care if you're here or if you're not. Go away." And he goes, "Well, if you don't care if I'm here or not, then I'll stay. I'm right here." And I love that even though she feels that everything is so tumultuous at this point in her life, they still are consistent. They still are by each other's side anytime one should need the other. But it's through realizing that she doesn't want him to ever not be by her side that she finally pushes herself to put herself out there. And naturally he's fallen in love with someone else, so it doesn't go great at first, but also she runs, so there's that factor. But she pushes herself to actually put herself out there for him. We also have Watari, who is the perfect support character. At first, I didn't think anything of him. He was the flighty, you know, ditzy friend who just like dates everybody and doesn't have a lot of depth to him until the end of the story, and then I just thought completely differently about him in basically every respect. He's such a good support character. The whole time, he's constantly pushing everyone else to not be stupid. When Arima is avoiding the hospital visits because he doesn't want to be a third wheel and because he's crazy about Kaori and because he doesn't think Kaori likes him too, and Watari is over and over again pushing him, go to the hospital, you need to go to the hospital, you need to be there too. When Kousei is, I don't remember what the scene was exactly, but he was grieving at some point, he was frustrated at some point about letting Kaori down, and Watari tells him, you know, she leaned on you when she needed someone to be by her side. I think she needs you by her side right now. That's ridiculous! That's amazing! When Tsubaki is going crazy and her friend is trying to get her to stop being crazy, and Watari is just like, you know, give her some space, let her figure this out. She'll dig her heels in too hard if you push too hard. She didn't listen, and that worked out. He's just great. And also, my favorite scene of his probably is so he's a sports star. He's the star of middle school, and this is their last game. This is the big game, and another kid is the one that blows the game for everybody, which is just perfect because all throughout this you have Kaori and Watari and Tsubaki all blowing it in their own respect, in their own way, and then they have to continue pushing forward despite that. But then you have him, Watari, who is great, and it's someone else that blows it, the big game. And while this kid is crying, he's going up to him and being like, no problem, man. We all mess up sometimes. It's cool. We've still got high school. Don't worry about it. And he comforts him and brings him, you know, back to the team, and he's a good team leader. And then it's not until he's alone in the bathroom that he then cries. And it's like, he's such a fantastic support character in this show, and even when it's his big moment that gets blown, he still is in the position of supporting his teammates through their hardship and then working it out on his own. I love his character. Never expected to. We have Takashi. He plays so intense and so hard and with so much passion because he's playing for this rivalry. His rival is his hero. His hero is his rival, and that he's human. And eventually that he becomes his friend, and he's grateful that this rivalry pushed him into his own kind of greatness. We have Emmy, who was so inspired the first time she saw Arima play when he was a kid. She was so moved by his performance that brought the heart and the soul that he really poured himself into, that she wanted to learn piano herself. And then once when Kousei turned into the human metronome, when he turned into a robot, she played as a rebellion against this robotic nature of him. She wanted to pour all of herself into her music. She wanted to say it all in the music, to reject the Kousei that he has become, the pianist that he has become, because she believes in pouring her heart and soul into the music and her own interpretation into the music, just like Kaori does. We have the mom's friend, whose name I've forgotten, who, when Arima was at his most vulnerable point, when his mom was abusing him, when he had lost the ability to hear the music, when he was sobbing, and she felt guilty. She felt like it was her responsibility because she was the one that pushed for him to learn piano, having no idea that it would turn into this, but she felt like it was on her, and because she felt that guilt, she thought that she needed to remove herself for his sake. She was wrong, and that unfortunately left this vulnerable kid without any reprieve that he could have had. But she gets to come back into his life and help him rediscover his love for music, push him again to play music again and find freedom through music this time instead of captivity. So she also got to redeem her story where she left this kid at his most vulnerable because she was guilty. Now she sees him vulnerable again and she gets to bring him through it and help him find healing. And then you have Kousei, who feels that he is stuck under his mother's shadow. He's the human metronome, the robot, the soulless creature. He couldn't save his mom. He couldn't save his cat. He can't save Kaori. What good is he? We have this traumatized kid who has this amazing talent, but it's being slowly strangled by his mother as she tells him, the medicine helps me get better, but it's your achievements that heal me the most. So just keep succeeding and I'll get better. So with his childlike innocence, this poor young child truly believes that if he can play well, if he can advance in the competition, then she will be well enough to come and attend the competition. And then if he plays perfectly, if he plays with absolute precision, then she'll be healed of her sickness. And he plays with everything he has, believing that he can save his mother through his performance. And what he receives instead is verbal and physical public abuse. Not that it was better when it was behind closed doors, but this time I had to watch it too. So not only is this poor child believing that he can save his mother, and when he tries with all his heart to do that, instead he's beaten down again. But then his last words to her have to be, "I wish you would just die." And then she does. And then he just carries that. And now music, which when he was introduced to him as a child was this beautiful outlet, is now this sinking trap of oppression. It's him being underwater. It's him being alone. Which is why Kaori stopping in the middle of her own performance and telling him again and pulling him forward with her, not caring about placing, not caring about what he can do for her other than to play with her, and teaching him a new way of playing, making him go back into music in this different kind of way, is what unlocks so much of what's been trapped up for so long. So let's talk about Kaori. Don't worry, I'm gonna get back to plot soon. Kaori is the one that chooses Love Sorrow for him to play, forcing him to tap back into very personal memories. She's the one that makes him look up instead of constantly looking down. Kaori is a kid that has been given a diagnosis and knows that her time is short, and she wants to live life entirely. Delicious desserts, she's going to enjoy them to the fullest. Fireflies out in the open, she will catch them and appreciate them and take full advantage of such an incredible moment. The chance to play music and actually touch people's lives, she'll give it her all, pour everything into it. A friend who desperately needs to find freedom again, she will push him to his limits to help him get there. She doesn't have as much time in life as she wants to be able to have, but what time she has, she is going to live it completely. And I love the scene with the fireflies because this is where she tells him it's okay to perform for someone else. It's okay to play and be thinking of other people. It's okay to give everything and want to speak to someone through that performance. Who were you thinking of? And he looks her in the eyes and he says, "Oh, I was thinking of you," or "I was playing for you," however he said it. And I just can't imagine how meaningful that must have been to her, you know? We know because we've all watched the show. We know that she was inspired by him when she heard his first performance, and she gave up the piano and took up the violin so that she could play with him. And so to have the person that inspired her to start the thing that is such a big part of her living her life, to have the person that inspired her tell her, "You're the one that inspires me." I can't imagine what that must feel like to her. Just the person who says, "I don't care about winning a competition, I care about leaving a mark on the people that watch me play." To be told by the person that left a mark on you, "You're the one that's left a mark on me." Like, how cool is that for her? What a great moment. I love the firefly scene. Now we need to talk about Mom. Okay, episode 13. Episode 13 is when Arima plays the competition that Kaori no-shows because, you know, she fell and is in the hospital again, but he doesn't know that. And this is the performance where his mom shows back up again, but he's playing Love Sorrow. He's playing the song that she played through his childhood, a song that was a lullaby to him. This is where he remembers that there were good times too. There was gentleness and care, there was love and kind teaching, before she got really sick. This is the way I interpret Kousei's mom's character, and you can tell me if you interpret her differently. We can have a great discussion about it. She was a mom that loved music, that found freedom in music, that put heart and soul in her music, and loved that Kousei loved music too, and she gave him a lot of care and attention. But when her diagnosis got bad, when her time was running short, she became so captured by fear that she became abusive as a response. She wanted to be able to be there to make sure that he brushed his teeth, to make sure that he got to school on time, to make sure that he was cared for through more of his life. She was a parent, a normal standard parent that wanted to parent her child, wanted to do her job and raise him up, teach him to be to grow up well, making sure that his needs are met. She wanted to do what she as a mother should want to do, but she couldn't. She didn't have enough time to do it. And his father seems completely absent, so she couldn't rely on him. So she was terrified, and her response was to go crazy intense. She said, she said a line when she was in episode 13, she said, there was no time to teach him to love the music. There was no time to teach him to put his heart and soul into it and to make the score his own. There was only time for perfection. Because if he could achieve perfection, if he could achieve perfect performance, then he might be able to make a career out of it. He might be able to take care of himself off of this. And so that was all she cared about, giving him a tool to be able to take care. No, she just wanted to know that he could take care of himself when she was gone. But she was wrong. She made the wrong call because he was a kid and he didn't need to learn to take care of himself in that, several months or a year or however long this went on. He didn't need to learn to take care of himself that young. He needed to be loved by his mother. Her behavior was created out of a fear of her child not having someone to look after her, rather not having herself to look after him. And so she tried to cram all of motherhood into this tiny little span of time. And what she ended up giving him instead was trauma that strangled his love for music, that terrified him, that shrunk him down into a very quiet, contained kid that didn't know how to express himself anymore. At the beginning of the series, Tsubaki says that since his mom died and he gave up music, it's like he's half living. I have sympathy for the unbelievably difficult position that his mom was in, this fear that she had of knowing that she didn't have time to be a mother, and so trying to cram all of it into one space, and in doing so, harming her child. I have sympathy for what caused her to turn into this, but it's tragic. It's so, so tragic, because all this kid needed was some love, and for you to make a couple calls and say, hey, I need to know that you're gonna take care of my kid when I'm gone. One of the calls could have been to, his father. Be around. One could have been to the best friend who was around. She could have made sure that she would have stayed. The neighbors who check in on him when his father's not around could have made a call to them. Like, she could have set up a support system around him, and she could have invested in him and taught him, you have more than just me in your life. You will be okay when I'm not here. It sucks that I won't be here, but you will make it. But instead, she made herself his entire life. He thought that it was just me and mom. That's all this world is. There's nothing else. He left competitions immediately after he was done playing. Didn't make friends. Didn't spend time with other people because it was just me and mom. It's just me, mom, and music. That's it. Anyway, episode 13 wasn't even about her. It was about him. Episode 13 was about him playing the song that reminded him of the good times with her. And through those good times, through remembering the good, the love, the care that she did give him before things went dark, he was able to lean into that and to finally get past the traumatic times in the end. It's not to act like the good makes the bad not count anymore. It's not to, discount or wave away all the trauma that was caused, so much as it was he couldn't see past the trauma since her death. That was all he saw because it was so consuming there at the end. And so in playing Love, Sorrow, he was able to remember all the good so that he could properly say goodbye and release the bad and finally move forward. Well, we spent too much time on that. Let's get to the rest of it, shall we? I said Kaori lives her life to the fullest, and it's true, but she also lives her life in a lot of fear. We watch her fall and beat her legs and scream at herself, stand up, stand up, stand up. She's out of control in her own life. Kaori is now investing in a little girl and giving her piano lessons, and she doesn't want him to do it. She actually starts lashing out at him when she finds out. She starts yelling at him, telling him, you don't have time for this. You need to practice for yourself. Night and day, you need to give everything to your lessons. You don't have time to be investing in someone else. She said, you're running out of time before you know it. And then she stopped herself because she realized that she was projecting onto him. He had time. She was running out of time. This is the same thing that his mom did. His mom was running out of time, and she projected all that onto him, and she put all of that pressure onto him. And in her fear and in her desperation, she couldn't stop herself from doing it. Kaori stopped herself from doing it. When Kaori realized that she was doing that too, I don't know how much she knew about what his mom was doing, but when Kaori realized that she was doing that, she pulled back and she checks herself. And then she asked him to commit double suicide with her. Listen, not great. But she realizes that she doesn't have much time left, and if she can't play anymore, if she can't perform anymore, if she can't leave her mark on people anymore, then what is she living for anymore? And so she's ready to just give up. And this is where their roles switch, where he tells her, no, I can't do that, because I want to play a duet with you again. She's the one that taught him to start living again. And when she feels like she's at the end of her rope and she's ready to give up, he's the one that pushes her to reinvigorate her desire to live again. This is what pushes her. He doesn't push her to it, but him re-inspiring her is what makes her decide to go for the surgery. It's risky. She might not make it out, but she might get a little bit more time. She's going to do physical therapy. She's not going to let her muscles atrophy. She's going to push herself as hard as she can so that they can play a duet together again. She can have a little bit more time. She's going to keep living as much as she can. And that means the world to her parents. He was the one that inspired her to play the violin, which is what inspired her to live life to the fullest and to put everything into something so that she could leave her mark on this earth. She might not be here for a long time, but she's going to leave her mark for the time that she's here. And now, the desire to play one more duet with him keeps her pushing, keeps her fighting a little bit more. And just the same, Kousei is fighting to get that duet too. He continues to push himself. He continues to practice. I love this little girl that he takes on in mentorship because I like the dynamic of she's the little sister of the rival and all of that's really fun. But primarily I love her because she is the representation of Kousei pouring into someone else the way that Kaori poured into him. In Kousei and Kaori's one and only duet in this story, real, physical duet, she starts off slow and then takes off and goes crazy, and he has to keep up with her. And it's in that back and forth and that brawl and that battle and then pushing each other that's his first experience of playing again. That's when she believes in him and she tells him again, and he realizes that he can play again. And then when he's playing with this little girl for the first time, when they're performing together for the first time, it starts out slow and then he takes off and she has to keep up. And at first it looks like, what are you doing, man? That's so insensitive. That's so rude. Why are you doing this? And the dialogue in it is that he knows her weaknesses and he knows her strengths and he's playing to each of them. He's pushing her exactly as much as he knows that she can be pushed to make her better. My memory card filled up. That's a pretty good indicator that I should probably stop talking. I like that he is pushing her the same way. Even though it hurt when Kaori was pushing him, his scabs had to be ripped open in order for him to be healed. That's painful, but she knew what he could handle and she needed to push him. And just the same, we get to see him do the same thing with the little girl that he's taken under his wing. through the ups and downs of Kaori's medical life, he has ups and downs too. He's terrified of being left alone. And in that scene on the rooftop where it starts snowing, she shows that she's terrified of being left alone too. She wishes she had more time. She wishes she knew as much about him as Tsubaki does. He's terrified of being alone. And so she plays for him in the only way that she can at this point, which is in the snow, on the rooftop, with an air instrument. But the music still reaches him. These are two kids that are very scared of being alone and who are covered in grief, their own kinds of grieving. Her grieving her life, him grieving his mom, and now her in advance, terrified of being left alone in their grief. So in this final competition where she's having surgery and he's playing for her, he starts panicking, he can't do it, but Tsubaki sneezes. And that draws his attention to the audience. And he remembers how much support he has around him. He remembers all these people that are here to watch him, to play, who are here to see him and support him. And he plays this song thinking of Kaori, as always, but also thinking of everyone else, thanking everyone that's been in his life, that shaped him, that's made him into who he is today. And again, I say, his mom was wrong. It didn't have to be her and him against everyone. It didn't have to be her cramming every bit of motherhood into a tiny span of time and traumatizing him in the process. He had support around him that he could have leaned on if she would have taught him to lean on other people. But regardless, here he is realizing how much support he has around him, how many people he have around him, how many people that he will continue to have with him no matter what. And he plays thinking of them, thanking them, and thinking of Kaori. And in his mind, he plays with her one last time. And I love the symbolism of this final duet between the two of them. How beautiful it is, them playing together, but then also the fact that she fades before the song is done. He desperately doesn't want her to. He desperately wants her to stay, but she can't. So she fades, and he has to finish the song without her. Just the same, sadly, she dies in surgery, and he has to go on without her. But this time, losing the most important person in his life, the one that has re-inspired his love for music, the one that has been, who he's put all of his love into, losing her doesn't crumble him because he has all these other people around him too. And because he's learned to stand on his own feet again and to be able to walk. He makes it through to the end of that song, and he will make it through to the end of this too. And that's when we get the letter, and that's when we recontextualize everything. She was there at that initial piano recital too. She was around and never noticed because there was no space for her. She, as I said, gave up piano and took up the violin so that maybe one day they could play a duet together. She didn't have a lot of time left in her life. When she realized that her time was short, she invested so much into, one, fulfilling her dream of being able to play the duet with him and being able to leave her mark on this earth, which she succeeded at doing, and two, helping Kousei find freedom in music again, teaching him to lift his head up, to look up, to pour his heart and soul into music, and to find freedom in this thing that musicians find freedom in. All this time, she was terrified of being forgotten. She didn't want to disappear, and for everyone that she interacted with to disappear in their minds too. She wanted to be remembered. And she succeeded at doing that completely. So she told this one lie. Of all the things that she did, she told this one lie that she had a crush on Watari, however you say his name. And I think that this was her last kindness because she knew that she didn't have a lot of time. She wanted to fulfill her dreams and she wanted to help Kousei heal. But she didn't want to cause such a disruption that there was no room for Tsubaki. If she ever decided to act on her feelings, she wanted to make sure that there was still room for her to do so. And so she created this barrier, this distance, so that even though she totally could have started a romantic relationship with Arima, even though she totally could have, he would have been fine with it. She still kept that boundary. She still kept that distance, kept up that lie, so that when she does leave him, she's not his everything. It's not just him and her. She probably would have preferred it to have started a romance in her last days, to experience that too. but she didn't, for the sake of the people around her. This is a beautiful story that is a piece of art and incredibly emotionally compelling. I really connected with this story deeper than I expected to. It moved me. Also, my battery died as soon as I started this last cutaway, so this is the end of the video. Please do chat with me more in the comments about this series. I would love to keep talking to you about it in the comments. I'll see you again soon. Bye.